All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another deep dive with us.
It's great to be back.
So this time we're tackling something a lot of you have been asking about, and that is thinking in English.
Yeah, it's a popular request.
I know so many of you out there. I mean, obviously you're listening to this, so you're learning English, or you're interested in English,
Right.
and I'm sure many of you have hit that wall where you're always kind of translating in your head.
It can be so frustrating.
Yeah, and it slows you down, right? It's like this mental speed bump every time you try to speak or even think.
Exactly.
So we want to try and help you just make English almost like the native language of your thoughts.
Yeah, just make it automatic.
A fluency upgrade for your brain.
I like that.
So let's dive in and see what we can uncover.
Sounds good.
So I think the first thing we always talk about with any kind of language learning is immersion, right?
Right.
But when we talk about thinking in English,
Hmm.
we're not necessarily saying you have to like move to an English-speaking country.
No, not at all.
It's more about creating that English-rich environment wherever you are.
Absolutely.
So what are some ways people can do that?
Well, I think the easiest thing is to start surrounding yourself with English content as much as possible.
Okay.
So that could be anything, listening to music, watching movies, TV shows,
Reading books.
reading books, exactly, podcasts, anything you can get your hands on.
But here's the key, though, right? Like, it's got to be stuff that you actually enjoy.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you're forcing yourself to listen to boring lectures or read textbooks,
Not gonna stick.
yeah, it's not going to work. It's not fun.
Right.
Learning should be enjoyable.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that when you immerse yourself in this way, you're basically training your brain to pick up on the natural patterns and rhythms of English.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like learning to dance.
Okay.
You wouldn't start with some really complex routine. You'd start with the basic steps, and then you practice them until they feel natural, and then you can build up from there.
Right. So it's kind of like building that foundation.
Exactly.
So how do we actually apply that to like the actual thinking part?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to start small.
Okay.
So instead of trying to translate every single thought in your head, you can just start by thinking simple, everyday thoughts in English.
Okay. Give us an example.
Sure. So instead of thinking, I'm hungry, you could think, I'm hungry
In English.
in English. Yeah, exactly. Or I need coffee, or time to walk the dog.
So basically the things that you'd probably say to yourself all the time anyway.
Exactly. And, they seem like small things, but they really do add
Not
up.
building mental muscle memory, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
more you do it, the easier it becomes.
And then, as you get more comfortable with those small thoughts, you can gradually increase the complexity.
Okay, so like how would you do that?
Well, you could try narrating your day in English.
Like you're doing a voiceover?
Yeah, like a sports commentator.
They're just like, he's reaching for the coffee cup now. Oh, he's decided to add some sugar. This is an interesting development.
Exactly. Or, she's opening the fridge. What will she choose?
Okay, maybe not that detailed, but
But you get the idea.
you get the idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of like talking yourself through your actions.
Exactly. And it might feel silly at first, but it really does help.
Now, this reminds me of something I've heard about the labeling technique,
Oh, yeah.
where you basically label everything in your house in English.
Yes.
Does that actually work?
It really does. And it might seem a little strange, but it actually taps into the way our brains naturally learn language.
How so?
Well, by connecting words to visuals.
Okay.
So every time you see that label on your coffee maker, for example, you're reinforcing the connection between the object and its English name.
So it's like you're creating a mental shortcut.
Exactly. And the more you see it, the stronger that connection becomes.
So eventually you don't even have to think about it.
Exactly. You just know what it is.
So we've talked about immersion, we've talked about labeling things. What about actually like talking to yourself
Yes.
in English?
That's a great one.
Because, some people might feel a little strange about that.
Oh, I know. It can feel a little weird at first.
Like, am I going crazy talking to myself?
But trust me, it's one of the best ways to practice.
Really?
Yeah, because you can do it anywhere, anytime, and there's no pressure.
It's like having a free English tutor
Exactly.
who lives in your head.
And who's always available.
Exactly.
Mm.
So how would you recommend people go about this?
Well, you can start by just talking about your day, your plans, your thoughts.
So it's just like a running commentary.
Yeah, exactly. And you can also practice different phrases and try out new words.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll become with the sound of your own voice in English.
It's like a private rehearsal space.
Exactly.
But eventually you have to get out on that stage
Right.
and actually have conversations with other people.
And that can be a little intimidating.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're not confident in your English skills.
Right.
So do you have any advice for people who are maybe a little nervous about that?
Yeah, I think the key is to find a comfortable environment.
Okay.
So maybe join a group or a class that's focused on something you're already interested in.
So it'd be like a cooking class?
Yeah, or a book club or a hiking group or anything, really.
And that way you have that shared interest to talk about.
Exactly, and it takes the pressure off a little bit.
So you can focus on just connecting with people in English.
And having fun.
So it's all about finding those opportunities to integrate English into your daily life in ways that are enjoyable and relevant to your interests.
Exactly.
And speaking of like integrating it into your daily life, we can't forget about vocabulary.
It's right.
Because, I mean, vocabulary is so important for being able to express yourself in any language.
It's the foundation.
Yeah. So how can people work on building their English vocabulary?
Well, I think the most important thing is to make it a habit.
Okay.
So instead of trying to cram a bunch of new words all at once.
Which never works.
No, it doesn't.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, so try setting a goal to learn maybe 3 new words every day.
Okay, that's manageable.
Yeah, and you can focus on words that are related to your hobbies or interests.
So if you love cooking, you might learn words like sauté or simmer.
Exactly. Or if you're into gaming, you could learn words like quest or strategy.
So it's all about making it relevant to your life.
Exactly. And, the more you practice, the more those words will become part of your active vocabulary.
And then you can use them naturally in your thoughts and conversations.
Right. And that's when you really start to feel like you're thinking in English.
Now, even with all this practice, we're all bound to make mistakes, right?
Oh, absolutely. Mistakes are part of the process.
And I think a lot of people get really discouraged when they make mistakes.
I know it can be frustrating.
But we need to kind of reframe how we think about mistakes.
They're not the enemy.
They're actually valuable learning opportunities.
Exactly. So every time you make a mistake, try to see it as a chance to identify an area where you can improve.
It's like leveling up in a video game.
I like that analogy.
You fail, you learn from your mistakes, and you try again.
And eventually you master that skill.
So it's the same with language learning.
Absolutely.
Now, to keep yourself motivated on this journey, it's also important to set realistic goals.
That's right.
So don't try to do too much too soon.
Start small and gradually increase the difficulty.
So maybe you start with thinking in English for 5 minutes a day.
And then you slowly increase that to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and so on.
And don't forget to celebrate your wins.
Yes, that's so important.
So notice those moments when you find yourself effortlessly thinking in English.
Yeah, those are the signs that you're making real progress.
It's like that aha moment when you realize you're riding a bike without training wheels.
Exactly, you're doing it.
Thinking in English has become second nature.
And it feels amazing.
So remember, becoming fluent in any language takes time and consistent effort.
It's a journey.
But with the right approach and mindset, you can absolutely make English the native language of your thoughts.
You can do it.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to ponder. How do you think being able to think in another language might change your perspective on the world?
Ooh, that's a great question.
It's food for thought, isn't it?
It is, because language is so closely tied to culture.
In how we see the world.
So being able to think in another language could really open up new ways of seeing things and understanding different cultures.
So keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep those mental muscles working.
Until next time.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive, everybody.
Bye!
See ya.